Why does he mention it 4 times? Because it's important. And because we don't get it the first time. How many of y'all read the Word of God one time? You read it from cover to cover, so I know everything in it. Good luck. I can read a chapter 10 times and not even figure out what's going on. When I start outlining it, then I see things I didn't see before. And by the time I've read it the 30th or 40th time, I begin to see some things I didn't see. Why? Because our mind doesn't get it the first time. If you don't believe me, I'm going to prove it to you. How many of y'all walked in the room and said, the teacher said, here we go. I'm going to teach you the alphabet. And go through the alphabet. Here's the sound. And by the way, I want you to start reading these words. It doesn't work that way. Our mind doesn't work that way. The Bible said in the prophets, we learn line upon line, precept on precept, concept on concept. We learn by bits. And that's what God understands. So he feeds us by bits. Notice some things. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. A man does not love himself if he doesn't love his wife. Period. Now, we got a lot of selfish people in the world. The only people they love is themselves. But you know what? They really don't love themselves. They think they do. Till love can be shared and expressed, you love nobody. Because I got news for you right now. I've had to go to the emergency room a few times. And a couple of them I wasn't able to drive. And if I would have been just loving me by myself, God only knows how much suffering I would have done. Praise God, she was there. She drove me. She took me. She took care of me, came back home, and turned the heater up once again. It happens, people. It happens. Middle of the summertime, she's cold. I understand. That's the way it works. Notice in verse 33, nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife even as himself. He's driving that point home. Love your wives. Notice the submission in the home. Verse 21, submit yourselves one to another in the fear of God. Now, I understand this goes with the last passage. I understand the semicolons there. I understand the periods at the end of it. I get that. But it sets up the next section. The home is all about submission. Husbands, submit yourselves to God as the father and leader of the home. That's what it says. So submission is important for everybody. It doesn't put, it does in a way. It puts a husband, if you want to picture a husband on the throne, that's quite all right. As long as you put his wife that he lovingly asked to marry him by the grace of God right beside him and they sit there together. Because that's what a home's supposed to be. The husband, the leader that God has sent for the home, and the wife that he loves to help build that home. Preacher, it's not popular in this Barbie doll day generation that all the women want to do is go out and party and have their friends and social time. No, it doesn't work that way. When we grew up, was the generation that the transition started. The generation before that, all the girls wanted to be what? A mother. They all had dolls. Now they want to party. And now they're marrying each other. So submission's important in the home. Notice as we go down these verses, people, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time. In verse 21, we do this in the fear of God. Let that sink in. Husbands, submit yourselves to God in the fear of God. That wives can submit themselves to God in the fear of God. That children can submit themselves in the fear of God. Now, picture this. I'm going to make this very, very simple. If everybody in the home is submitted to God in the manner God has us to submit to him, absolute submission, why is there trouble in the home? Why? My wife, my husband. People, I'm going to tell you this. I raised 4 sons that are all grown men today. I had more problems out of our dogs than I did our children. Documented fact. My wife would tell you that. I had more problem out of our dogs than I did our children. Why? Because our children knew if they did it, they were in trouble. End of story. And they learned it was easy to submit. And we never had a problem after that. None. People, I'm telling you right now, even when they were in their later teens, we never had problems. I watch these parents, and they come in and they tell me their problems. I look at them like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Didn't you go through the teenage years when they were rebellious and sneaking out of the house and all that? Nope, never happened. Never happened. Did you tell them not to? People, they're grown men now. They can do whatever they want to. If they go off, they're normally home by 10:30, and they're grown men. They can do what they want to. 3 of them have badges with them. They can go where they want to go. Cody, what's the latest you've ever stayed out?
I don't know. 1 to 2 maybe. But nothing like 4 or 5 or anything.
No.
Nothing crazy like that.
He'll go to the card shop and they get over there and start playing that card game they play. And sometimes it may be midnight before he gets home. I know where he is. I know what he's doing. Mm-hmm. He's a little over 30, a little south of 40. Never had those problems. Never. They never came in the house and said, I'm going to go here. I didn't care where they went growing up. I knew who they ran around with. Never had that problem. Submission is good for everybody. If everybody submitted to God, you don't have those problems. But I want my way. That's not submission. That's rebellion. You tell a child to do something, they turn around, whip that child right then and there. Why? That's rebellion. They're going to pay for it later, and you're going to be the one paying for it. You'll be the one going down before the judge, watching the judge sentence them. Life in prison. Preacher, it don't happen. You take husbands out of the home like we've done this last generation, you look at our courts. They had a guy that punched that 92-year-old. Oh, I'd love to get a hold of him. Me and him would dance, boy. Oh, glory, hallelujah, we'd dance. I promise you right now, he'd say more than uncle when I got through. He had been arrested over 100 times and out on the street. Do that down here, down south. Don't do it in New York. Do it down here. Do it down here and let Bubba and Boudreaux catch you. You'll be praying for cops. You won't be praying to fund the police. You'll be saying, bring on the police. Well, I got to have some relief. Shoot up in amongst you. One of us got to have some relief. I don't care if you shoot me. Submission. Notice the second time that it's used. Notice you get, as we go, verse 24. So let the wives be, talking about submission, subjection, to their own husband in everything. People, all that means is let her consider him. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that everything my wife thinks has to come to me for me to approve. She comes in all the time. Honey, I have an idea. Do you think this will work? Most times, something I never thought of. Have no idea. Daniel, let's pump it up real quick. And Cody, get the fire extinguisher ready. Does it work? Sometimes. Sometimes not so much. But it is hilarious either way. People, she considers him. He loves her to the point he makes no decision without considering her. She loves him to the point she makes no decisions without considering him. All it means. Hey, before I do this, let me call my wife to find out. Let me call my husband to see before I do this. Some families, money, I know some, anything less than $100 they can spend without talking to the other one. Anything over $100, they talk about before they spend. If that's your agreement, that's fine. I don't care one way or another. She's called me before. I don't care. If you want it, get it. She knows if I want it, I'm going to get it. And people, I'm not being ugly. We know that. That's not an issue with us. But we've had to reach agreements in other areas that may not be a disagreement with some other people. So you got to figure out what works for you. What areas do you need to submit and agree on and consider the other one? And what is their free reign to do? We need to understand that. And people, the only people that can determine that is that husband and that wife, that man and that woman. Nobody else can determine that. Notice the next time. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands. Back in verse 22. Notice in verse 33. For the wife, see that she reverence her husband. The people, that reverence there is not bow down before him. It's just that reverence, that moment. You know what? Before I do this, let me talk to her. And he's saying at the same time, before I do this, let me talk to him. Let me talk to her. Let me talk to him. They back and forth. The marriage is strong while they're both submitted to God. They're both submitted to each other. Their children submitted to them and submitted to God. Guess what? They got a peaceful home. Notice, I want to get to these things, and if we go a little over, I'm sorry, but notice verse 29. For no man ever yet hateth his own flesh, but he nourisheth and cherisheth it. People, husbands need to understand that word nourish there can be translated, if you will, to nourish as to strengthen, to build up. You can even use the word, if the illustration thought there is to bring them along. You can even sustain them. You can even use it as nourishment of food, whatever it takes to get them to come along and be with you. There's a strengthening process. Husbands that defend their wives, nourishes them, protects them. They know they're defended. That's a happy wife. A wife that knows, hey, if his family says something, I don't have to say nothing. Me and my wife have a rule. I don't know her family that well. I wasn't reared with them, okay? I know them after 39 years of being around them, but not to the level she does. She knows how to work with them. I've never said a word to her family. They've never really been mean to her. I've never said a word. In fact, my in-laws are actually better, and I'm being serious. I have much better relationship with my in-laws than I do with my family. Sure I do. No criticism at all. But listen to me. I deal with my family, she deals with hers. If hers ever crosses the line, yeah. I've never had people, if I hadn't done it in 39 years, do you think I'm going to do it tomorrow? No. But the thought there is she knows she's defended. She's been nourished, and I hope she always remembers that. Cherisheth is the next word. And cherisheth it. Every man, and I'm going to pound this again, every man honestly has a trophy wife. He needs to treat her as that. God gave you that gift that's with you. Well, preacher, you're not thinking about this right. You don't know my wife. I mean, if the devil had a clone, it would look like Hillary Clinton and act like my wife. Then why did you pray about it and ask her to marry you?